On behalf of the Tech Bharat team, a very warm welcome to the outstanding panelists that we have put in today for the session. The panel will be deliberating on the mission critical topic, Bharat, the hub of healthcare innovation. Just to give a brief about the topic, if one puts three key components together, that is the software industry, biotechnology, and healthcare, it would be a formidable combination, and that will lead to disruptive innovations in the healthcare sector in India. In the last 2 years alone, India has created some incredible innovations, including the development of world's thinnest material made in IIT Gandhinagar. The material is 1 lakh times thinner than a sheet of paper and holds huge application potential, for instance, in the ultraviolet absorbing films. Similarly, in Manesar, the researchers in the National Brain Research Center unveiled the exact cellular and molecular mechanisms that show Zika virus manifestation, while the scientists at the Translation Health Science and Technology Institute, Faridabad, recently developed a very quick and sensitive test to detect TB in the sputum. So like that, grassroots innovations like these hold immense potential across the globe, more so in India. To dive deep into these very issues, we have put together a great panel. Let me just introduce the panel. Dr. Sanjay Sharma, founder, Food Secure. Mr. Samir Savarkar, co-founder and CEO, Neurosynaptic Communications. Mr. Surender Parasuraman, founder, Medinit. Mr. Vinayak Nandalike, founder, Ostro Labs. Let me just introduce Dr. Sanjay Sharma. Dr. Sanjay Sharma is the founder of Food Secure and co-founder of Ostro Lab Limited. He has more than 16 years experience in providing healthcare for the masses. Dr. Sanjay Sharma did his master's in general surgery and pursued his further studies in podiatric surgery in the US. Dr. Sanjay Sharma also has done MDP programs in health management, hospital administration, health economics from IIM Ahmedabad and AIMS New Delhi and World Bank respectively. Dr. Sanjay Sharma is the member advisory board of various health tech startups and public companies. He was also the vice president of Telemedicine Society of India, Karnataka chapter, and presently the secretary of Indian Podiatric Association, Karnataka chapter, and mentor at NSRCEL, IAMB, RT Labs, and Gincelerator. He has contributed to several patents in telemedicine, medtech, diabetic, foot, and wound care domains. A few of his innovations are in the market today. In December 2019, Dr. Sanjay was felicitated as the Rising Star in the Times Healthcare Achievers Award, instituted by the Times Group and Government of Karnataka. And Food Secure was also awarded as the best podiatric clinic chain by the India Today Group. I now hand over the session to Dr. Sanjay Sharma to initiate the deep dive session. Dr. Sanjay Sharma.
Thank you, Shekhar, for the introductions, detailed introductions per se. And it's been a privilege to be associated or moderating a panel at Tech Bharat, where we are looking at how India has been an innovation hub. Even though we see a lot of innovations across the globe, especially for healthcare, India has been an innovation hub, and we will look at reasons for the same of how India has been an innovation hub in healthcare, and also look at what could make it more better in terms of taking the Bharat to the world stage. So healthcare in India, faces several challenges, including, we've been talking about inadequate access, low insurance adoption, and growing chronic disease burdens. Doctor to patient ratio has been less, and lack of on-time redressal systems, database, infrastructure constraints, and time barriers. So with all these, loopholes that people keep pointing out, India's healthcare sector has a lot going on in it in several fronts. We have a high quality healthcare, and that the private sector provides more than 76% of that high quality. So in an ocean of inadequacy that we see, we have the islands of excellence across pan India. So with the launch of Ayushman Bharat program in India by Narendra Modi government in 2018, the Indian healthcare industry has seen a phenomenal growth. Due to the contribution of various factors, the industry is expected to reach a value of $372 billion in 2022, which shows a high CAGR. A government-led push to get healthcare providers to embrace electronic medical records. We all know that there is a guidelines on the EHR that has been published by the government of India. Um, enables the artificial intelligence to extract insights from patient data and deliver better treatment. The availability of telecom bandwidth is making medical expertise to each undeserved rural markets through telemedicine and teleconsulting programs delivered over mobile phones. Only in the March this year, just as the lockdown was implemented, the government of India put in a telemedicine policy, which is one of its kind across the globe, where any patient can seek a medical help in across any platforms. It is not restricted to he needs to use a HIPAA enabled or something similar to HIPAA enabled EMR or a telemedicine portal. It is not restricted to any specific device. It can be from an so he can access medical services or the clinical consultations from a doctor either through email, either on an SMS, a video call, a lot of other things. So this has made India leap beyond what the world was thinking about. The Indian government's Make in India program initiative is encouraging domestic manufacture of medical devices and helping lower the prices patients pay for products such as stents and implants, which in the past were being imported. And also many of the innovations that have been happening in India is supported by the Make in India. Along with the support from the government, the Indian healthcare industry also finally jumped the wagon for technologically growth and innovations, which has helped to solve many hindrances that slow down the process of development of the industry. We can also talk about education in healthcare. One of the topics of the Tech Bharat has been edutech also, but there is a combination of where there is education for the healthcare professionals or education in healthcare through Skill India and various other programs of the government that has been given a major boost. I believe personally that the healthcare innovation in India could serve as a global model for a shift from treating the sick to preventive care and wellness. Given the size of its undeserved populations, this is going to be a huge. So let me introduce to my panelists now. I have Vinayak Nandalike and Surinder. At this point of time, Samir should be joining in any moment. So Vinayak comes from a engineering background, did his master's in business administration from the prestigious ISB from Hyderabad, and quit his well-paying job at Accenture and jumped into healthcare medtech industry, and he's now the founder and the CEO of Yostra Labs. I would further leave it for Vinayak to talk about his company, so rather than me talking about it. I also have Surinder, who again has been an entrepreneur in medical education perspective. He's the founder of Medinet, or Healthcare Digital. His journey is unique, from the pharma graduate to starting up this company in Singapore and having its operations in India. So that would be a unique story for for us all to hear. And we also have Samir, who has been a veteran in digital health per se. We have worked together since 2005. He is the CEO and founder of Neurosynaptic Communications, a pretty early entrant into a telemedicine sector in India. And I'm sure Samir will have his own story to share in the last 15 years, 20 years, what has been happening in the Indian digital health scenario. So I'll begin with Vinayak. If you could kindly share, if I missed out something in your introductions, you can talk about your company, what innovations that you have been up to, how is it impacting the life for a person staying in Bharat?
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Sanjay, for the introduction, and thank you, TechBharat, for giving us the opportunity to talk about Yostra and what we're doing here. Um, Very briefly, Yostra is a medical device company which is into bringing innovations in medical device development, specifically targeting the foot complications of diabetes. So we have two products. One is NeuroTouch, which is a point of care screening device for diabetic peripheral neuropathy, and the second one is called Kadam. It's an advanced wound care device for the treatment of chronic wounds such as diabetic foot ulcers. Um, a brief about our journey since 2014. We The company was established in 2014, and we got our first product out in the market in 2019. So it took us around about 5 years to develop a product and get it to the market. Thanks to the entire ecosystem, we were able to do that because yeah, you need support from the entire ecosystem, be it the clinicians, the government, the the incubators, and the whole gamut. So at this point in time, I'd like to thank the entire ecosystem for making this possible. So we were supported by DST through BIRAC. BIRAC is Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council. This is a government entity that helps startups like us to take products from an idea stage all the way till commercialization. Happy to say that both our products have been supported by BIRAC and also by Startup Karnataka. Both BIRAC as well as both the central government as well as the state government have ensured that startups like Yostra can innovate, take the product through its product development stages, and then release it in the market. So the support has been throughout our journey, and our first product, NeuroTouch, is in the market since 2019, and we have been able to deploy and get the user feedback in multiple locations, be it hospitals, uh, public healthcare centers like PHCs, uh, district hospitals, and the urban healthcare centers. Um, Kadam is currently in the clinical validation stage, and we hope that we will be having the device in the market by the hopefully the second quarter of this year. Um, Happy to talk more about the products that we have and the way technology and the ecosystem, specifically how the ecosystem has enabled us to, one, sustain through this period, while at the same time get support as and when needed to get our products to the market and commercialize it.
Vinayak, just wanted to touch upon. I understand this has been a huge innovation that has come up from the with the support of BIRAC and other people in the ecosystem. But why was it, thinking back, if you're supposed to do the same innovation in any other country versus doing it in India, do you think this product could have been come into the market at the earliest? How did the Indian ecosystem support you vis-a-vis what might not have been possible outside of India?
Um, Sanjay, the two innovations that we have, I would say it's global in the sense that these are global products with the local need. In the sense that when we develop products, these products need to ensure that they meet the requirements of the local customers, be it in India, or Southeast Asia, or Asia, or anywhere. So the ecosystem in India has been developing, and it's been developing rapidly in terms of providing support during the ideation stage, as in case of providing seed funds to take the product from idea to a proof of concept stage. Specifically, if I look at Bharat related grants that we have got, they helped us to get it from an idea stage to a proof of concept stage. I'm not sure there's any other governments in the world who are proactively supporting startups and entrepreneurs to um, take the products from idea stage to a proof of concept stage and support throughout. We do have programs in the US and in Europe, but nothing is so nothing is so well thought through. And we are developing the grants that have been developed over the course of time. And if given a chance to develop another product, I would rather do it in India, because the ecosystem is much more defined. It's much more defined in terms of the learnings that we have had in the past 8 to 10 years of the grants being available, and how they have evolved in supporting the startups.
Thank you very much for that insights, Vinayak. So Surinder, the same question to you. If you can just brief about what you have been doing, how is it innovative in comparison to what has been happening across the world, and why did you choose India? Apart from you being an Indian and having to contribute to the country, apart from that, why did you choose India to put in your operations here?
No, right. Okay. So I think the premises in which Medinet started is around medical education, or the problems prevailing around medical education. Now, to answer the question of the global versus India, I think I'll take that part. But critically, why we started Medinet? Medinet was started with a vision to transform continuing education of healthcare for healthcare professionals. That's the premise in which Medinet started with a vision. Now, why are we talking about education? I would split into two: one, the base medical education, and then the continuing education. Now, in fact, the medical education, I would relate it. The medical education in India is actually of global relevance. Why so? If you look at the statistics, more than 70,000 medical graduates from India, that is around 10% of qualified doctors in India, are actually in US, UK, Europe, other nations, which makes it a global issue. Now, the medical colleges, the 25% of the top medical colleges, currently we have around 500 plus medical colleges, and the top 25%, the quality of education is world class. But what about the rest? The rest are considered to be below par, or at the best mediocre. Now, in fact, a study which was done by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, it actually funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, actually rates that medical doctors, many are not more competent than untrained quacks. So this is an prevailing scenario now. So while quantity remains to be the strength of Indian medical education, the weakness remains the quality, and this is precisely what Medinet aims or strives to solve, complementing with the efforts from the Indian government. In fact, they have moved forward with competency-based education, and with the introduction of NMC. So while they look to transform, it's a long road ahead. But Medinet strives to solve that problem by being a connector between the educators and the learners. So that's the premise in which Medinet started. Being in Singapore, the idea was to connect the global community. And why India? I think India, as I said, the medical education in India is of global relevance, and more the reason why India should be the place for this innovation, and aptly is now supported by Ayushman and other environment premises. I think it's the best place for Medinet to be in.
Chris, thank you for the crisp this thing. So if you can just brief also upon what Medinet does today for the medical education aspect with regards to the digital interventions and innovations in the medical education field.
Right. So we began, with one of the things we focus is, of course, the medical knowledge. I mean, you would agree the state of current continuing education is actually very passive. It does not meet the needs of the healthcare professionals. So that's the premises with which we started. Though there are models for continuing education, but we do see that it is very passive and not meeting the requirements of healthcare professionals. For example, let's look at some of the disciplines what we address. Minimal access surgery is one of the key discipline we started with. Now, minimal access surgery does not have a formal education, and it's primarily, it's a surgeon grows into a lab surgeon or a minimal access surgeon with experience or training. And we worked with societies like the Association of Minimal Access Surgeons to launch a long 1-year program where currently we have 600 plus surgeons graduated out of that program with immense appreciation for the program. So that's one kind of success stories we have, and which is still continuing. Now, broadly, we have classified our programs into 3 parts. We run what we call as expert programs. So where, as we said, we act more like a marketplace where we enable educators to come on our platform and connect with the learners. So expert programs are primarily led by individuals. We have professional programs, which are delivered by associations and institutions. We have accredited programs where it is a program in partnership with universities or institutions which are accredited by the medical council. So these are 3 types of programs what we run on our platform. And one success story which I did mention was the professional program with minimal access surgeons, where we have around 500 plus surgeons graduating out of the program in the last 1 year. We have societies, eminent societies like IAGS or gastroendoscopy, conducting their fellowship programs on our platform. Currently, we have around 600, just did their online examination Viva on our platform. We have expert program. That was an immense success story. I mean, which was conducted by, in fact, on fetal echocardiography. So where around 500 radiologists took up the program. And the interesting factor is, one I did forget to mention, these are independent programs, which we do not look at funding from any pharma. These are paid by doctors. So this is more of a self-motivation from doctors. They pay to acquire knowledge. And with this success, we do see that they do see relevance of such programs, and ability to pay for the programs really shows the outcome that they get out of it. So these are broadly the 3 programs or the model in which we work.
Thanks, Surinder, for the brief. I think you're transforming the education. When we were doing our medicine, our surgery, we never imagined that we could learn medicine online. Or especially when you're talking about surgeons, trying to learn or continuing their medical education, or getting a diploma online, or in a blended model, so as to say, it's fascinating to hear. And probably sometime, as we were always saying, that the patients will come to the hospitals only for surgeries or acute care, and everything else will be managed from their home. Similarly, at some point of time, the 5.5-year core MBBS course will be majorly 4.5 years of online education and 1 year of internship. So let's see where it goes. Coming to you, Samir, we see that you have been in the industry, or especially the digital health industry, since the last 20 years, almost per se, and you've seen it grow. You have seen the ups and downs of the digital health industry, with Neurosynaptic, with devices being there and the services being provided. So if you can just give a brief about your journey, why did you get into digital health, your journey in the last 20 years, and what do you see as a future for the same?
Good morning to everyone here, and thanks for this opportunity to be part of this panel. And hopefully I can contribute something to this. So yeah, the journey of Neurosynaptic has been very interesting. We are not technically a startup. We founded almost 19 years ago. In fact, when there were many challenges for telemedicine, we actually took up the problem, or what I would call as an issue of healthcare access to the last mile. And as we all know, about 70% of the population stays in the rural areas, whereas it has very little in terms of the skill sets for people, in terms of the infrastructure for healthcare, in terms of all the healthcare facilities, plus awareness and various other things. So we took this up as a challenge and said, and when I say we, it is Rajiv and me who are basically both from the Indian Institute of Science background, who have worked at various organizations like Motorola and Zilog, international organizations earlier. Rajiv has also been in the US for a little while, about a couple of years before he returned back, and we started this. So, so essentially, we thought that this challenge of bringing the healthcare access to the rural areas or remote areas can only be solved through technology, because all the attempts of taking the doctors to the last mile have terribly failed all over the past so many decades. And so telemedicine was a natural choice for taking the healthcare access to these last mile. The journey has not been so simple, however, and that is why so many years. But we sort of don't give up until the solution is obtained. So we started working initially with putting together a small solution where the doctor and patient can talk with each other. These were the kiosks, as I remember, which were setting up in those times, which now have become the community service centers, etc. And then slowly evolved from there onto a full-fledged telemedicine solution with medical devices. So today we actually manufacture many medical devices, about 7 of the medical devices, which are completely indigenously developed, right from the design to the manufacturing, as well as an entire telemedicine platform which caters to more than 100 programs in India itself today, in various parts of India. We have projects in about 12 states today with various partners, and we have a presence in about 13 other countries with this telemedicine platform. We have been able to achieve many awards, etc. On this, and have been able to take access to more than about 5 crore population everywhere through the centers. And these are not our own centers, but these are the partners centers. So we are a healthcare solutions company which works with various partners with a mission of enabling access to the quality and affordable healthcare to masses. So that's briefly about the journey. I think the technology where we started, the environment where we started, have also completely changed in this scenario today, where we see a lot of change in terms of the adaptability, in terms of acceptance, in terms of the future path that this particular kind of technology or medical devices scenario in India would take.
Thank you, Samir, for the brief on the journey. But if I want to ask you the same question which I asked Vinayak and Surinder, in terms of how India, how innovating in India um, has been successful, or has for you in comparison with if it is the same thing with any other countries. We have seen a lot of products that are coming out of US. There are products from Europe and various other countries from the West. But India has always taken a center stage in terms of innovation, even though the scale is missing, is what I see. But from the innovation perspectives, it has been important, and we see a lot of Western device manufacturers or technology implementation, AI tools, and everyone coming to India for their clinical trials or validation and various of those purposes, and then go back and sell the products in the Western countries. So how do you see this as an advantage India in terms of healthcare?
So actually, so this is a very interesting one. First of all, from the choice point of view, it was very clear in our mind when we started this, Rajiv and I, that we must do something from India for the world. That was very clear from the day one. It was something that we needed to originate out of India. This was also sort of pushed or supported by many people who we got in touch with at that point of time. The current PSA, Dr. Vijay Raghavan, for example, or Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala and various other people who were already working in some sort of domains for economic upliftment of the rural areas, etc. So this is a very worthy challenge. That is the first thing that I would say. Now, about India, it is very unique in many aspects. In terms of opportunities, it is very unique. In terms of challenges, it is very unique. And I don't think any solutions elsewhere can just fit in. The very first encounter of this challenge was that, we thought the technology is very simple. Let's put together, we were ready with the technology. We put the technology in the rural areas, and then we suddenly started seeing misuse of technology. That's something that we cannot introduce a solution without having thought about it, without having taken precautions about it. Like the glucometer, somebody who was an operator started going in the field, started doing readings themselves and started prescribing themselves. You know this already, since you were also part of that at some point of time then. Now, so this is a very unique challenge. So every of these challenge has contributed to our learning and our introduction of solution to it. Uh, so initial challenges were skill set, connectivity, power. Now power as a challenge. Now, 20 years ago, we had these farmers switching on electricity whenever there was electricity. It was so like few hours a day or something like that. And then because of that, there would be huge electrical surges and spikes and so on. So we had to build our own devices. And we could not use any of the ready-made devices which were available in the international market, simply because they would just go bad within few days. So those are very unique challenges, many process related challenges, many or device or technology related challenges. We had a huge infrastructure challenge in terms of connectivity at that point of time. So let's say you had cell phones, but barely at that point of time. So with IIT Chennai, we ended up putting together a solution which will work at 64 kilobits per second kind of a bandwidth. That was the first telemedicine or first video audio conferencing that can go to that kind of bandwidth. There was nothing else in the world which could work at that kind of bandwidth. So these were some unique problems and solutions. But then the opportunity that we are talking about here is that nowhere else, perhaps Africa, but in Africa also challenges are different, but nowhere else have we seen these kind of challenges where there is a mix of high technology, low technology, mix of high infrastructure, low infrastructure, something that works very well in some areas, doesn't work very well in the other areas, and so on. So, and of course, government has been supportive. Government has supported us through Technology Development Board earlier, more recently through BIRAC, where we have developed these unique set of devices now which have a Bluetooth interface and trying to avoid manual errors by directly entering the devices into the by reading into the EMR, etc. So, so those a lot of things seen in the journey, really, I think.
Thank you, Samir. As just to say a few of my thoughts. So if you're looking at teleradiology, that has been very rampant, or I would say it has been well adopted from India itself. This could not have happened from any other country. To develop an AI around teleradiology, or even to get an access to a lot of radiological films, it's kind of very difficult in a Western country with the HIPAA regulations and a lot of other things being there. We will not be able to get an access to the patient data. Vis-a-vis in India, it's a good and bad, since we don't have that very strong secure personal data management system. So it's easier for me to go to a hospital, talk to a doctor, and get some anonymized data from them to develop my own products, or any algorithms, or things. So there has been barriers that I see in the Western countries to innovate, even though we have the infrastructure, the talent, engineers, especially in healthcare. There have been several barriers, which is not there in India. Probably even from the edutech perspective, if Surinder or Medinet would want to get into US, for training doctors online, there could have been a certain barriers which he didn't find it in India, and adoption was pretty quick. So those are the things that we see, at least I see as a kind of an advantage in India, apart from the general things of having the talent, having the right age group of people working in here, and the supportive government also. From what we have been doing at Food Secure is again bringing in the concept of podiatry to India, which is unheard of. When I finished my podiatric surgery and came back to India, most of my classmates thought that I finished pediatric surgery and not podiatric surgery. So podiatry is something where we take care of the foot and ankle conditions. There is surprisingly, there are more than 300 ailments related to the foot and ankle. The foot has almost 1/4 of the bones for the whole of the body. So considering that, it has been a neglected field, and we wanted to bring it in to India, and we intended that we start a chain of clinics dedicated to foot and ankle, like we have the dental chain in India per se, but that kind of evolved into setting up podiatry departments in various hospitals. Like we have the dialysis centers in various hospitals managed independently. We did that in about 5 hospitals in Bangalore, and we saw the challenges, and we clearly knew that by setting up this brick and mortar clinics, we will not go anywhere, because India as that huge country, and providing access to podiatric services and products pan India was not possible with the brick and mortar model. That's when we said it has to be a blended model where we develop artificial intelligence aided clinical decision support systems, which will help every physician in diagnosing a foot and ankle problem, and he should be able to prescribe the right prescription in terms of, it could be offloading footwears, it could be prescriptions, wound healing, and various other things through that. And why this was very important especially was, even though I said there are 300 plus ailments, diabetic foot takes a huge chunk of it. Every As we were speaking, it's almost about half an hour now, but we would have had almost about 60 amputations in the world that would have been happened just due to a diabetic foot condition, and these are all preventable. 80% of these diabetic foot amputations are preventable. In India itself, there are about 1.5 lakh registered amputations that is happening to diabetes, of which probably around 1.25 lakhs could have been prevented if an appropriate care has been given. So with this intention, we said we need to equip doctors, physicians who see diabetic patients, to equip them with diagnostic devices or AI enabled platforms to ensure that they check their foot, diagnose them early on, and provide prescriptions or footwear which can prevent these amputations. So that is what Food Secure has been doing, and this could not have been possible elsewhere, because to develop an AI algorithm, we need a lot of data in terms of wound care or foot care. And if this would have been, I had to do it in US where I studied and came back, it would have been a huge challenge. I would not have had an access to this data at all for years together, with all the permissions and all those things to be in place. But here, I just need a consent from the patient, and I need to have the doctor enrolled into the whole concept so that he can provide the data, and we are able to develop this AI engine in about a year's time. So that's what I see as an advantage, Bharat, here, and also providing an access to all these people for getting them treated appropriately. So getting back to Vinayak, if you could share more about the impact your devices have created. I know that you have been in the your devices are been in the market in about 2 years now, almost about 1.5 to 2 years now. So what is the impact that you see it has created out there in the world?
Thank you, Sanjay. Clearly, as you talked about the diabetic foot complications and the amputations resulting from that, just looking at the journey of the patient. So all diabetic patients uh, develop complications, and one of the complications of diabetes is diabetic peripheral neuropathy. So diabetic patients have a few complications. One of them is diabetic peripheral neuropathy, which left untreated can lead to ulcers, and ulcers, if left untreated, can lead to amputations. So it becomes imperative that all diabetics are screened for peripheral neuropathy. A basic foot examination of the diabetics happen early on when the patient is either pre-diabetic or through diabetes. Now, because of the lack of infrastructure and the availability of medical devices that can help screening of diabetic patients, the most of the diabetics, the foot examination is never performed until they develop an ulcer, and they end up with a surgeon. So if you look at the landscape, the diabetic patients generally go to their family physicians or a diabetologist or a nearby clinic for the management of their condition. Whereas the instruments that are available in the market, they're more available in a hospital setup. Now, the mission that we set forth with when we developed NeuroTouch was to ensure that the foot screening is available at the point of care. Now, here the point of care is the clinics, the primary healthcare centers where the diabetic patients go to on a routine basis. Now, to enable that, the device had to be portable, the device had to be battery operated, all the tests had to be done in a single device, and we had to ensure that the data is digitized. So with these requirements, we developed NeuroTouch, which has been used in multiple healthcare settings, especially at the point of care, be it a primary healthcare center, be it a hospital, or be it in a home care setting. Now, with this, we have been able to get the foot screening. So initially, the diabetologists and the doctors did not have a means to screen foot, means to screen diabetic patients for especially the foot complications. And with NeuroTouch in place, we have been able to enable foot screening at a primary healthcare center. Now, how does this impact? How does this impact the healthcare system? We have been able to successfully screen in the past 1.5 to 2 years, be it COVID or not. We have been able to screen 17,000 diabetic patients for symptoms of neuropathy and also do a basic foot examination. And this has enabled the healthcare providers to educate the patients on the complications of foot and what basic care has to be taken to ensure that we don't end up with foot ulcers conditions. So I'm happy to say that we are being able to get the attention of the healthcare system and the patients towards foot complications and how to enable better foot care.
Yeah, any statistics in terms of how many people have been screened till now? And if you can extrapolate the same to the number of amputations saved.
So we in the last 1.5 to 2 years, we have been able to screen close to 17,000 patients for foot complications, be it diabetics or pre-diabetics, and happy to say that we have been able to successfully ensure that we are able to prevent future complications such as foot ulcers and amputation. From a second product perspective, where we have uh, Kadam. Kadam is an advanced wound care device that helps to accelerate wound healing. The device is currently under clinical validation, and we have successfully provided treatment to close to 80 diabetic foot ulcer patients. Happy to say that we have been able to close the wounds and prevent at least 80 amputations just through the clinical validation stage.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Vinayak. Coming Surinder, how was it? The same question to you. In the last 4 years that you have been in here, how do you think this has impacted the Bharat?
Right. I think we should start with your discipline of podiatry, right? I mean, that's been a great association. And when the discipline of podiatry, that was one dissemination we were able to do through our platform. So currently, one I would say it is impacting Bharat and the reliance on Bharat. That's how I would put it, because we also see our neighboring countries becoming more reliant on knowledge from India, which is again a good sign. In fact, we have around 12% from the neighboring countries like Bangladesh and even from Africa and so on. But sticking to India, I think the impact has been, we have around 10,000 plus learners or paid learners on our platform, people who have subscribed and taken up different programs on our platform. And subscription of over 100,000 plus healthcare professionals so far. From the significant programs, we have an overall rating of 9 plus to the question whether the learning has impacted their practice. We have a rating of 9 plus, an average of 9 plus across all the programs. I think which stands tall and true to the credibility of providers delivering on Medinet. So I think that impact has been significant in terms of bringing new knowledge, true to the fact of focusing on continuing education.
Hey, thanks, Surinder. Also, I think from the perspective of imparting knowledge, and they in turn using it to treat their patients, because we are here talking about the practicing doctors. They are not someone who are still studying their undergraduation or post graduation. They are all practicing doctors, and the kind of knowledge that they impart or use it in their practice would also be of huge impact, that I would say. And it's also interesting to know that where we are all used to attending conferences and getting knowledge free of cost. Here you're saying that the doctors are paying for every course or every hour that they attend your courses or the courses hosted by Medinet. How did that change came about, or did you see any resistance amongst the doctors when you say it is being a paid course, or it is just on the quality of the course? What do you think about that?
No, this was an interesting, as you rightly said, when we launched Medinet, this was the big question we had, because the idea was we stay independent. I mean, even globally, the continuing education largely relies on pharma industry. And even when globally speak, it's unheard that doctor would pay something for the program. And again, that's coming to Bharat again, right? I mean, when you mentioned about why it would take in Bharat, I think that's where we saw the opportunity where doctors were willing to pay if there were, outcome based out of it. I mean, that's something what is underlining statement, that if a program is able to deliver an outcome, yes, they are willing to pay and subscribe, not depending on any other grants or sponsorships. And we could see that. Let's take an example of even an expert program, which was delivered by, in fact, Dr. Pradeep on fetal echocardiography, fetal echo series, basically. It had no accreditations, no individual or no institute or societies parting with it. But the mere fact that he was delivering his 20 years of experience, and we saw from the Radiology Society, people subscribing to it. So that was an evident fact that if there is an outcome, they are willing to pay for it. So wouldn't say challenges, but currently we are looking to onboard more programs in this direction. So identification of the right problem area and the right programs is the only challenge we are trying to address. But I think the acceptance, if there is an outcome, I think it's being welcomed by Bharat or the healthcare professionals in India.
Thanks, Surinder. Samir, coming to you. So the first part of the question is, what impact has your products made in the Bharat? So I know that Rasan Aptech has been working with the remote villages in the villages in Bihar, like Bijnor, that we haven't even heard of.
UP, yeah.
Heard of. So and villages in Tamil Nadu, as Shivgangai and district and other things. So what impact has it created till now? What are you proud of?
Okay, yeah. So, it's really some journey, as I was saying. We have till date from 2005, when we actually started experimenting and started putting telemedicine centers in the rural areas, which was far ahead of today in terms of its vision. We have set up till date about 2,700 telemedicine centers in the rural areas. These are with different partners. We have been able to bring access to about 5 crore population in India, and this actually physically has brought the healthcare primary healthcare center closer to people by more than 1.4 kilometers over the 5.6 kilometer PHC distance that we on an average have for this 5 crore population. We have had about just about 10 lakh consultations, teleconsultations, with the Remedy platform that we have built and the devices. Now we can take 40 point of care tests to the last mile, which include tests like ECG, tests like glucose, and tests like lipid profile for these population. Just to tell you a simple example of 3 primary healthcare centers in one of the northern districts of UP. We have been able to do 25,000, 27,000 consultations in just 1 year out of 3 primary healthcare centers last year, on an average of about 36 consultations every day from these PHCs, each PHC. So one of this within India, I think it is phenomenal. It's just that it is way under the radar for some reason. But perhaps the largest number of consultations that have been done over the telemedicine in the history of India. The second part of it is also overseas. So we have been experimenting with a lot of countries, developing countries similar to India. And we have recently had one of the country's state ministry do a pilot and evaluate that pilot and recommend for the scale up in the whole country. This is one of the African country, western side. So this is a phenomenal impact on one side. On another side of impact, I would also say that we have been one of the forerunners in pushing for various enhancements into the policy levels. And I think you are aware of that. So basically pushing through the telemedicine society, or even otherwise showing various models that would work. And I am very happy that this government has actually opened up the telemedicine guidelines, which was pending since like 18 years now. I think 2005 was the first 15 years. So it was pending and everyone wanted it, but it was not being put in place. And all of those hurdles have been removed. I think from last 2 years, if we see the growth in teleconsultations for myself, for our company, it has been 17% quarter on quarter. So that's the kind of phenomenal growth that we are seeing in the past 2 years. And beyond this, we actually expect a much larger growth. For example, whole of these last so many years, we have done close to 10 lakh consultations, but this year alone, we are doing about 2 lakh consultations. So that's the kind of growth that we are experiencing.
I have a question here. So, and I think it is appropriate to Samir, so I'm continuing with you. Do you see an increased public-private partnership as a successful model in spurring innovation, like in the context
Yes.
in the context of COVID, developing the vaccine, where we saw industry, academia, and government work together to come up with something as a two COVID vaccines. Will this model continue? And what has been your thoughts about this?
Yes, actually, so this is a very good model, not only public, private, but also academia in some places. So where we see a lot of initial contribution for our company came from the IIT Chennai background and some research done there. I also see NCBS or National Center for Biological Sciences working quite well in this direction, many other innovation centers. So I think academia research, core research will definitely be a huge contributor to deeper innovations on one side. The second is that very interesting thing again done in the recent past is the CSRs or the corporate social responsibilities domain, which has actually tried to build the models for government. So that's a very interesting perspective. If you see, many of these are in the nascent stages when they start. People don't know which way the models would go, which way they will evolve, what is good, what is bad. So it is nice to experiment with these CSR kind of funds, which are sort of soft funds and are willing to experiment. But then the natural or logical conclusion of each of these projects is actually to develop a model to hand over to government. And so that's one path which is very nicely working, is what I believe. The other academia path is also very nicely working, and I think we need to invest in research very well. The third part, and this is basically the more regulated part of it, I would say. Once things are proven, once things are in the market, then we go with a even playing field, regulated field. So I think that's where we still perhaps need to do a lot of work as a government, as a country, and as innovators. Because a lot of standards need to be adopted, a lot of processes need to be streamlined, accredited, and then move forward. I think there is some work that needs to be done on that part. But I think this is working nicely, taking research from the academia, taking models from the CSR, helping government with certain models, and then establishing a regulated playing field to take it to a larger scale. I see we are going very well on that path.
Yep, absolutely. So I think the public-private partnerships and academia partnerships was there, and which came into the very highlight during the last COVID situation. Even from the perspective of in food secure, one of my colleague doctors was working with ISC to develop a self-offloading footwear, which is now gone to the government to get funded through Bharat to kind of do a prototype of it. So we see a clear integration of industry, academia, and government, which has come to a forefront due to the COVID situation. So talking about COVID situation, in the last 1 year, has it been uh, very how has it been for your companies in terms of innovation in the last 1 year? There have been a lot of innovations that happened during the last 1 year, including the sanitizer stands that came up in every of our offices. There has to the vaccine that has been developed. So how has it been for you in the last 1 year during the COVID season? I'll start from Surender.
Okay. I would say, okay, COVID did act as a, in terms we say COVID acted as a CTO or, it acted as a technology officer, right? I mean, it transformed technology, the ease with which we were trying to promote. So I think the adoption of technology by the doctors, that's what it opened up. I think while our concept was, okay, it was about online dissemination of knowledge. Now, the prime thing that required for us was, okay, how fast the doctor can adopt technology. And I think that's something COVID, the period actually threw up and opened up the gates. So I hope in this year and the coming year, we are going to reap out of it, in the sense that people would be more comfortable, because there were some good success stories. Like, for example, a program where 200 doctors used to participate. We had an attendance over 2,000 plus cardiologists attending that program. So even they were quite surprised. So the change was that, hey, okay, hybrid is one of the way which could move forward because we are able to reach a larger audience. Some of the conferences, national conferences which was held, had 6,000 plus. The minimal access surgeons conference had 10,000 plus attendees. Not only that, they were able to bring a whole global ecosystem, that is 40 plus international speakers, which in a traditional conference would have been tremendously expensive beyond their availability and time. But I think the knowledge exchange was tremendous. Of course, people spoke of webinar fatigue and webinar being an epidemic and so on. But beyond that, I think COVID did open up gates for knowledge exchange. I think as we move forward, there's going to be a balance between a physical and a virtual, and that balance is good. That balance is for good. So it has opened up the gates. It's up to us now to see how we can move forward.
Vinayak, your thoughts?
Um, uh, COVID has not been the COVID pandemic during the period has not been that great for us, being the fact that most of our customers were dependent on footfall into the clinics or hospitals, and most of that was completely shut down because of the pandemic. But things started opening up towards the October, and we have seen a very good increase in the footfall since the October-November timeframe, and it's back to business since the February of this year. So it from a period where we had a complete lockdown and there was no movement in the market to where we are right now, where the things are getting back on track. We have seen a good traction picking up and getting back to pre-COVID levels from January, February of this year.
Samir, your thoughts?
Yeah, so this has been a very interesting period, I would say. Firstly, because telemedicine opened up, of course. So that was one. But our response to COVID was we tried to work on two particular products. And one of it was related to the COVID testing screening kind of a product, which would use these rapid tests. And though we developed it, we somehow did not get a lot of traction on it, but we developed it on war footing. And perhaps it was again a little too early. We should have developed it 3 or 4 months down the line after the initial, after the initial peak. So the second product that we developed, however, has been very interesting, which is a direct to home teleconsultation. We always had this clinic model at the back end, and people would come to the center and interact with a nurse to get in touch with the doctor. Whereas what we did, and with our partnership with one of the larger firms, since they had a lot of hospitals as their clients, we actually ended up developing what we call as direct to home teleconsultation. And I am happy to say that about 20 to 23 hospitals actually used this and are using this in the COVID times, providing consultations to people from their homes by onboarding certain doctors and providing teleconsultations, etc. So with online booking. And so with this, we actually have gotten into slightly B2B2C kind of a environment, which we actually are a B2B company that way, but business to business. But I think it helped quite a lot of people. I don't have exact number on that, but about 23 hospitals used that during the COVID times. More importantly, I think a lot of organizations which were earlier skeptical or not wanting to go into telemedicine because of the legal possible hurdles or perceived hurdles, etc., have completely opened up, and we are not having to sell telemedicine at all as a concept, which was a very big hurdle initially.
Yep, understand. Yeah. So there's another question which says, do you see alternate healthcare systems gaining ground in India, and what is the probability of any alternate systems becoming the mainstream in the near future? I'll first answer it and then open it up to the panelists. Having a background both in Ayurveda and the modern medicine, I think it's not just about an alternative healthcare system being the mainstream, but I think there is a need for a national system of medicine, which is an integration of all the 5 or 6 systems that has been practiced in India. Instead of the constant fighting that has been going on, and also some of the policies of the government which backfired in terms of allowing the Ayush graduates to practice allopathy and vice versa. We need to look at a system which is based on scientific evidence, where it could be, which would be called as a national system of medicine, rather than an alternative system like Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, or versus the Western system. What it requires here is the research in terms of what for the with the patient in the perspective, not in the from the system perspective. We need to look at, okay, for this patient, he has this condition, which is the best system that can cure his condition. It's not just about the cure or the managing his condition, but it's also which is most affordable and patient friendly and outcome based. So if we can get into a clinical protocol which will talk about how each of the condition is kind of addressed in various systems of medicine, and what is the evidence to say that this system of medicine works the best for this condition, and if we can develop a national system of medicine, and also from the clinical training or the medical education perspective, if we can have a basic medical education which includes the basic uh, subjects like anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, microbiology, and other things, and then allow the doctor to choose to practice whichever system they would like to practice. So they have the basic knowledge of the human body across all the systems, and then they make a conscious choice in terms of what medicine that I need to practice going further. So this is something that I have as a vision. Probably I do not know how much it's going to come true, but somewhere down the line, I see what is required as a national system of medicine. I think this question is kind of open to the panel if anybody wants to comment.
My few thoughts on the system per se. At the end of the day, what are we trying to do? We are trying to ensure that there is better patient care. There is a better we strive so that there is a difference in clinical care for the patient. So all this is possible only if the guidelines are put in place, especially the regulatory guidelines. Be it any system that we use, we need to ensure that there are guidelines that are formulated to ensure that these are clinically validated. Any system is clinically validated, and the data is published. So be it the Ayurvedic or Unani or any system that can be used.
Any thoughts from Surender, Samir?
Yeah, I would like to just briefly say that we have now the advantage of technology, and we have now the advantage of acceptance of this technology. This is actually a golden opportunity for many of the alternative medicine things which have not perhaps had a lot of data to prove. And this can be used as tool across to gather many evidences and establish it internationally, because these systems of medicines have been working very well. People ask for them. There's nothing in technology that can prevent, I mean, that should prevent these from getting widespread. The diagnostics and tests are same. And from the technology perspective, it is a very big opportunity to collect and demonstrate or showcase all the data to the world to take it everywhere.
Absolutely. Also, a thought was most of the technologies for the tech entrepreneurs like you, most of the technologies are focused on the mainstream medicine. In terms of if you're looking at a digitization of stethoscope, digitization of ECG, and other things, but there are various diagnostic procedures that has been mentioned in these alternative systems or the Ayush systems that has been there. Some of the tech companies in Japan have figured out a way to understand the pulse. In the sense, the Ayush, the Ayurveda doctors would like feel the pulse and figure out how much is the vata predominant or a pitta predominant or a kapha predominant kind of a thing. And we have some technologies from Japan which will kind of put the wristband around you and it will say which is the predominant pulse that has been there. I think some of the technologies of technological companies should start supporting the alternative systems also to kind of enrich their systems with technology.
Yeah, so actually, I will try to address this problem from various angles. Okay, so because we have tried this, that is why it is very sort of emotional topic for me. So on one side, I see that there are very few investors who understand this perspective of alternate medicine, because probably most of them have been trained through a standard medicine mechanism, or the thought comes from the Western side. The second part of it is that I think there is a lack of a consolidated expertise or a group or a set of people who can give inputs to these kind of concepts. I see in bits and pieces. I met someone who had a deep experience in Nadi Pariksha and the related technologies, and could and my for example, my family has personal experience with such a doctor who had cured so many things. Now, they need to be collected, consolidated, and made available. Those are not there. And so basically, a lot of people think that this is, a personal expertise rather than a collective sort of mechanism to diagnose something. So this is second part. The third is that I would really look forward or suggest to the agencies like BIRAC or Department of Biotechnology to put together a specific fund or program to address these conceptual things. For example, we have something which we can prove, but then there needs to be a little larger research around this, not just a Me Too device research, which typically people would fund. They will say, okay, here is a device, here is a proven already concept, so you just take it and build it. It doesn't take too much. Here, there is a lot more than just building a traditional device. Here is a whole philosophy behind that device, expertise to be collected behind that device, and then actually tried out with multiple modes. So that's something that we need to have, and then a mechanism of actually carrying out those trials in a well-defined manner. I don't think a protocol for such technologies or such things which have been established. That's something a lot of work needed.
Yep. Surinder, there's the other question which is specifically for you, which says, what innovation is required to reduce the cost of medical or healthcare education in the country, considering the high cost makes it unreachable for most of the middle class and the lower income groups?
Now, is this towards continuing education, or is this on the basic medical
It
education?
could be basic medical education also.
Yeah, I think okay, that's an of course. I think now with I think that's one of the prerogatives of NMC, I believe, to reduce the cost of medical education. I'm not sure if we are playing a role over there, while we still continue to focus on bringing down costs of continuing medical education, or rather access to continuing medical education is something what we are focusing on. But yes, I think the core medical education, or the base medical education, as we said, I mean, it's in doldrums, or while measures are being taken, it's still a long road ahead. So leave alone the cost of access. Of course, there are increase in number of colleges, which makes probably the numbers are fine. But again, the high quality education is still from the top 20% or 25% of college. So um, I do not have a strong comment over there. I mean, of course, there are measures from government, but on the continuing education, yes, I think there's online methodologies like what we said. The COVID, we experienced this, primarily from the first-hand perspective was the access to knowledge was eased out. The cost to many of the conferences or webinars were subsidized, and the knowledge exchange was tremendous. I think people spoke of knowledge fatigue. I haven't imagined people sitting in a conference or a webinar for a day long and listening to it. But the kind of interactions what they had on the platform really showed some, probably people really listening to it and watching to it. So I think, yes, digital techno, the way currently it's shaped up, that would definitely bring down cost of continuing education. Yes.
So as we discussed, there are medical education methods in Cuba and some other smaller countries that we see, which has been proven very effective in terms of where the person getting into medical education gets a, as we said, gets some basic training for 2 years or 3 years maximum per se on all the basic sciences, and then he goes and starts practicing with a doctor as an intern or as an assistant to the doctor for almost about 3 to 4 years, where he gets expertise in that specific field. Instead of going through the internship of all the doctors that has been there, of all the specialities that has been there, and other things. So there are a few countries which have deviated from this traditional model, which has been adopted by the Western systems of getting the 5.5 year course and then the 3 years postgraduate program to become a doctor, where we need to have gray hair by the time we start practicing. So it's time to look at integrated medical education, where we call it as a national system of medicine, where they have some taught some basic sciences of medicine, and then allowed the choice to the doctor or the candidate to take up his own stream of medicine. It could be a specialty in a medicine, or it could be a different system of medicine, is something that I say as a thought. So last questions, we are at 10:20. I want to each of you to take a couple of minutes to talk about the challenges that we are facing today in your respective industries, in terms of the government policy or the perception of the industry per se with the private sector, and what would you recommend to change this or to overcome these challenges, from Vinayak?
Thank you. The first thing which comes to my mind when I look at Yostra and the portfolio of products that we have, I look at the patient education and doctors' education on food conditions. The food care is in general a very less talked about topic. The reasons are many, and care and looking after the food by individuals is very less. So ensuring that there is patient education and there is education among the doctors to look for the food conditions and to take care of it, there needs to be an effort from the entire ecosystem, and that includes the government as well. And we are hoping that through the Ayushman Bharat program, there is a focus and there is efforts put into look at this aspect and provide us support to enable this at primary healthcare level.
Surinder?
Okay, so as I said in the initial pitch, it's not that continuing medical education is non-existent. Yes, it is, but it's in a very passive state. And what we would like to see is, so currently continuing medical education, one of the things that's upcoming is about credit hours being given to doctors and making it mandatory to renew their license. The policy is great. But if this could be strengthened with an with an unified approach by all, because currently it's under different state medical councils, each have their own rules and regulations. So even when we offer a program, if it would be easy for us to connect with different medical councils and they have the program accredited, then it becomes a double benefit for the doctors. One, acquiring knowledge plus ability to maintain creditors. So that's something what we are looking forward to work with different medical councils, but that remains a challenge today because with different policies and so on. And again, I would like to stress that yes, people are again opening up in the COVID area. Like some of the medical councils like Delhi Medical Council, Maharashtra, Karnataka have come out and allotting credit hours even for webinar and online viewing, but the policies are very loose. So hoping to see enhancements in these areas and for better integration of our platform with medical council. I think this will augment the knowledge exchange and learning or continuing education altogether.
Sameer?
Yeah, can you repeat the question? I missed that some.
The question is, what are the challenges that you see today with the existing policies that have been there for your industry, and how would you? What are your suggestions to overcome them?
Okay, so many are there. I will start with a few. Basically, we need a very good structure for. There are many startups now. There are many people who are experimenting with devices. There are many people who are coming up with innovations. There needs to be a clean regulatory field, which clearly defines what to do. For example, we need to have standards adopted. We need to have test labs infrastructure. We have STQC and we have ETDCs and ERTLs and all, but many of them are not accredited for many of the standards that are supposed to be tested by them. So those kind of infrastructures of test labs. So I have developed a spirometer, for example. There is no test lab in India for testing that. So some of the efforts in the past few years have been good. For example, there is a Kalam Institute that has been Kalam Institute of Health Sciences that has been published or established, and then there is also a MedTech Park, etc., that are being established at many places. So this needs to be strengthened so that people have a very clear idea of how to or what to when they come up with some idea or some product, including right from the inception stage design to testing to clinical validations to certifications. That's one thing. The second that I would like to say is we need to have faster patent process. So we applied for one in 2002 and got it in 2008. We applied another in 2012 and got it in 2020. So that kind of time frames are like not really good. Third is that we need a deep investment into the research, core research, because we can do many products which are sort of incremental in terms of innovation, perhaps easily. And we can, of course, we have some core strengths like AI and all those things. But what I'm saying is when we have these deep research invested, then we can come up with innovations which are sort of much larger and not get limited by this incremental set of innovations. So these are some of my recommendations, I would say, or inputs. We have come a long way. We need to go a little more.
Sure. So quickly, last round of questions before we end this session. What are your future plans?
Shall I start?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so I think we are here at a very golden opportunity because what we waited for from 18, 19 years is here. And what we are looking for is now not only, I mean, of course, expanding in India is one thing, but we are looking for giving the solutions to all the countries, developing countries in the world, including African, Southeast Asian, and Central and South American countries, which typically are very well suited for this technology that we have. We have already started making inroads into various of these countries, pilots into various of these countries, and are wanting to expand on one side. On the other side, we are wanting to build some nice data related AI models, which will actually make the life of patients easier. Now is a time where we also want to make a shift from the doctor-based models to more patient-based models, or the provider-based models to the seeker-based models in the given future. So we are looking to expand globally, and there are some big plans. So let's see how they work out.
Sure. Surinder?
Yeah, I think COVID has accelerated and it has laid out a good and opportunity field for 21-22. So our focus is going to be more on onboarding programs, working with different institutions and societies who have opened up to the thoughts and ideas. Number two is working with the medical councils and integrating with the government for the creditors and maintenance of creditors, and how we could play a part in making CME active. So I think onboarding programs is going to be the key focus, and integration with medical councils is these are the two areas where we are trying to focus, and that should set the ball rolling.
Vinayak?
2019 and 20 has given us a good glimpse of the market for our products, and we look towards a market scale of both inside and outside of India, both for both of our products, and we'll also be looking at developing new products now that we have two in the market. So I would like to say that this is the best time to be part of this ecosystem, not just to scale up our existing products, but also to develop new products. So it is imperative for us to make use of this opportunity provided by the entire ecosystem, be it the incubators, the grants, the government, the policies, the regulatory setup that is there. So looking forward to a good 2021.
Awesome. From the food secure perspective, what we intend to do is implement our AI platform, which is in development at this point of time. And the whole overall vision is to provide an access to the 1.3 billion population of India to an effective pediatric care services, or the foot and ankle services, and ensuring that every foot that walks barefoot has a footwear on his foot. So that's what we are looking forward to as a vision. And 2021, we intend to reach to more and more doctors, more and more hospitals who can provide an appropriate pediatric care through the technology and through brick and mortar clinics as a blended approach. Any final comments from Surinder, Samir, or Vinayak?
None specific, but I think it's a great platform. I do thank TechBharat for the opportunity, and thank you, Dr. Sanjay. I think the questions were pointed in the right direction, and plus your vision of an integrated medicine is something. It's a nice takeaway or a vision which seems to be realized. But thank you for the opportunity. Yes.
Yeah, same. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I think again, yes, the questions were absolutely correct, and I really hope and look forward to a big future in the domain that we work in, as well as thanks to TechBharat for this opportunity.
Can we take one last question, Doctor?
Yeah.
What is the outlook for health care innovation, considering the fact that government is supporting with excellent policy initiatives?
Yeah, so I think we need the whole ecosystem. We have just started gearing up to this. As I see it, I see many of the startup programs oriented towards this. I see many of the BIRAC policies actively promoting. And I see NDHB, I see National Digital Health Blueprint, I see the Health ID being promoted, digital health being promoted. So this is a very good news because the whole alignment along that direction is happening. It may take a little while to actually set it rolling on the ground, like the Ayushman Bharat or even the insurance schemes, etc., to completely get error-free or problem-free. But I think it is a right direction that we are moving into. Our estimate is like it's a huge market that will open up. Not only the market, but also the impact that will open up. India, as we see, has an opportunity to show direction to the world here. And because of its size, because of its strength in innovation because of its inherent software capability that we already have, and because of the young population that is eager to show it. So, given the opening up of these opportunities, I think a lot of people will actually get nicely aligned, and we will have a framework, digital health framework throughout India very soon to demonstrate, and other countries to take lessons from. Almost all of the developing market I can very clearly think of, but the developed markets also, to reduce their costs and uh, increase their efficiencies, might take up to our models.
Thanks a lot for this excellent session, for anchoring this beautiful session, to Mr. Samir Savarkar, Mr. Surendra Parashuraman, and Mr. Vinayak Navalike. It was indeed a very comprehensive deep dive session. We are in the process of collating all the points discussed here, and the same will be submitted to the relevant government officials. I hope they will take serious cognizance of this aspect. Thank you very much once again to the great panelists.